What is happening out there, Awesemo baseball fans? Welcome to the Live Before Lock show. We've got a true Live Before Lock today coming up on the FanDuel slate, and we're going to be pushing it out to about a quarter till 7, so getting close to the DK lock, but not exactly at it because we've got a split up slate today. I'm here with my pal Gundacker. My name's Terry. I think you guys know us both at this point. We're here to break down the entire slate. We're going to go through the games first that are on the FanDuel slate in the 6 o'clock hour. Then we're going to pivot to the DK slate to talk about the second game of the Angels and the Yankees doubleheader. And then we're going back to a slate where everybody's on both slates and things will be a little bit sane. So we're going to get into everything there. We are brought to you by Odds Shopper today, our sister site that everybody knows and loves, and hopefully is checking out for all your sports betting needs. We'll get into them in a little bit. Make sure to hit the like and the subscribe, guys. Helps us out a hell of a lot when you guys hit the like button for all the YouTube algorithms, all that fun stuff. Hit it and subscribe helps you out, helps us find out helps you find out when we go live. Doesn't help us find out when you go live, as far as I know. But maybe it does. Who knows? Either way, hit the like, hit the subscribe. We got free stuff up on the site, player projections for baseball, ownership projections for baseball. Not too bad to have on this show as the free offer. We are also hosting an NBA Finals watch along for game 1 tonight at 9 o'clock. Join Greg Ehrenberg and Eric Lindquist as they use playback to live stream the game and provide their always insightful commentary. We have a link in the video description below for details on how to join in on the fun. You got to jump from that link over to our site. There's a little article telling you how to sign up with that service. It's real quick and easy. Get signed up and join the guys for a fun watch along tonight. I know I'll be in there hanging out, and it should be a blast to hang out with Greg and Eric and a bunch of you guys to watch the game. Going to get me back into watching the NBA. So, Gun, what's going on, man? I just did a whole hell of a lot of talking without even saying hi to you, pal. Sorry about that. What's going on with you?
You're none. It's a good day, man. Shohei Ohtani getting rocked by the Yankees, and part 2 is going to kick off, man. So Yankees postponement yesterday. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, I thought I was muted.
No, you're good.
Yeah, no, I'm excited for I like Yankee baseball over the finals, so I'll probably be watching that. But hopefully the finals is a competitive game for everyone else's sake.
Well, the Yanks will definitely be on like the TV that's kind of just like right over here off camera. And then I'll have that stream with all the setup and everything, all that fun stuff that we've got up here. So it's going to be cool over there. If you guys, for that watch along, though, it's a service that's going to allow you to watch the game in real time with the guys. So everybody's on it at the same time. It's not like you're hearing them react to stuff 2 minutes late or any other stuff that it's been before. So it should be cool. So I'll be checking that out, and hopefully everybody out there is too. But yeah, I'm with you. It's going to be fun to see the Yanks in action for that game 2. That's not on the FanDuel slate, is on the DK slate. It was fun watching him get to Ohtani. I can only imagine you had a bunch of chips on Matt Carpenter early home run, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, literally, that's all he does. Is if he's going to hit, it's a homer. Simple as that.
So ridiculous. I don't know where this is coming from. I was talking badly about him this morning. I still believe everything I said about him this morning, but hey, I'll take it. Let's dive on in. We've got the first game up on deck. The Giants going up against the Marlins. Giants got Alex Wood, the pretty good lefty on the hill, at a very nice price and a ton of ownership on FanDuel. Marlins answering back with Sandy Alcantara, one of my big targets on the slate. I'm happy to pay up to $11K for Sandy. I'm curious to see what you think of this pitching matchup, because I do like both options in a vacuum as far as ownership or price or anything. So what are you doing with these two guys?
Yeah, I think Alcantara definitely showed what we know as a ceiling in that last start. It was really, really nice, and gets the park boost going back or at home here. 2 ERA, not too far up from his 2.5 expected ERA, so it's not like a massive gap for regression. Maybe Sierra's a little bit higher, but it's still not bad. The 1-4 strikeout rate helps. The almost 14% swing and strike rate is there. The sub 5% barrel rate, all that stuff is pretty doggone good. I would say if I had to push back, though, Alcantara, even going back to last season, that strikeout rate does dip when it's against left-handed hitting down to about 21%. And the Giants are going to roll out a ton of lefties, and there's not a ton of implied strikeouts to be had. So we are kind of betting on talent, but at the same time on FanDuel, I'm also kind of betting on a quality start. Maybe we can scoop the win. We're gonna have to wrestle with the price points because of the bigger bats that are on the slate. But I think he makes a lot of sense. It's definitely gonna be in my player pool. I haven't decided on how much just yet. I was leaning about 15 to 20%. But looking at like the other options on this slate, like I just feel like he's a better pitcher than 90% of those guys just in a vacuum. So I might just bet on talent a little bit more than I usually do.
Yeah. Like I will take minor shares of like an Ian Anderson. I think he has a path to being successful at Coors at no ownership, but I'm not really looking to get to options like that. I'm not wild about paying $9K for Jordan Lyles on this slate. So I'm kind of comfy just dumping some shares into Sandy, the pitcher that I do believe in kind of the most out of these guys, at least outside of everybody not named Sean Manaea anyway. And he's drawing a ton of ownership too. So it's just interesting the way it's breaking down, but I think I'm good with loading up some shares of Sandy here. What about Wood on the other side, coming in nice and cheap? 7,400 would be a great price to pay for him against a Marlins team that has been really not that great against lefties. They did get Jazz Chisholm back in the lineup, which should definitely help, and I'm sure boosted the season-long numbers that I mentioned this morning. So if you're going by those numbers, you know, might want to go back and check it out there. But what would you do with Alex Wood with all that ownership on him here?
Yeah, I mean, the shallow pool of pitching makes me a little bit more inclined to get to him, just because I'd rather not play. Chris Flexen, Taijuan Walker, Adrian Hauser, Austin Gomber. Like, it's a very, very yucky pitcher pool today. So I'm gonna have more modest expectations and accept more modest results out of the pitcher spot on both sides. And two, I just think, like you said, the matchup does mean something. Almost a 30% team K rate this year against lefties. That's 78 WRC plus. Is that what you got against lefties on the season? That's not great. It's a plus park for him. So I just, I'll take some shares of him just based on the park itself. The strikeout rates, pretty mediocre, and I don't love the advanced metrics, the 4.38 expected ERA, the almost 1.5 WHIP, but matchups to matchups. I'm just hoping he doesn't die out here, and maybe we can go 5-6 innings. But it's a lot of uncomfortable clicks that pitching today.
Yeah, are we targeting below the field on that massive leverage number on Alex Wood here though?
Yeah, and then just
like
having
150.
Not only that, but hedging with some Marlin stacks. There is a little bit of pop there to be had, despite what the WRC plus is telling us, right? The Jorge Soler, Jesus Aguilar, Avi Garcia, Miguel Rojas, and then you mentioned. So I can walk away with 4 or 5 names that I feel okay with. So yeah, I'll double hedge, undercut, and then have some Marlin stacks in my back pocket, but not an exponential amount.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I'm just trying to figure out why the hell CJ Cron just broke in my model here as I was trying to upload the projections. All of a sudden, my model decided to project CJ Cron for a very small number tonight, and that doesn't make any sense compared to everybody else's, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Let's jump to the bats then in this matchup here real quick, and we'll talk about, I agree, I think I do want to grab some Marlins bats. I do think it makes sense to grab some of those Giants lefties as well, coming back against the Sandy Alcantara ownership, particularly if I get out to the Fields level or even a little bit beyond on Sandy here. So which of the bats would you be looking at from the visiting Giants to start us off?
And one thing Alcantara does really well is keep the ball on the ground and in the park. But it would be the lefties if I had to. And that's not saying much because they only have 1 righty or 2 righties. But probably want to probably some Yaz, some Jock. I do worry about the switch potential in like Listella and Jock Peterson. We can turn those guys into platoon righties later in the game. So we are dealing with that, but that's just a risk we're going to have to take. We're hoping for them to act quick, fast, and in a hurry. And I think Jock Peterson is probably the favorite option for me, just grabbing a guy that's in a good RBI spot and then has a lot of pop no matter what.
Yeah, Jock's been tearing the cover off the ball. 325 ISO is pretty appealing. 12 home runs, pretty appealing. 60% better than average creating runs this season. Not too bad for the little Jock there. Luis Gonzalez, kind of interesting to me. 2,900 later in the lineup. I mentioned him a decent amount of the time on shows. I just like the bat. 337, 374, 471 creating runs, 39% better than average. Not a ton of power to speak of, but he's good for correlated scoring. Hits from the left side of the plate, and nobody's going there. So I'd be looking at him as well. Throw him on the fire with the other lefties in that lineup. What about on the other side, the Marlins? You mentioned Jazz Chisholm back in the lineup. I'm definitely interested there. He's got a low ownership tag now, but it'll probably go up, I imagine. Like, I can't really see John Birdie being owned 9% and Jazz going only 1%. That doesn't really jibe for me. So what are you seeing in this Marlins lineup outside of like Jorge Soler, who you mentioned, who I agree with, a lot of power there?
First of all, I mean, they look like a really solid substack to like cores, right? They're all pretty cheap. You can put them in there with the maybe way higher owned Brave stack to offset some ownership. And you can really pick on Wood's weaknesses. In the last 2 seasons, he's allowed a 300 plus average to righties, not really striking righties out a lot. So maybe we can neutralize the 25 to 30% K rate that the Marlins possess so far against lefties, especially since the beginning of last year. So Birdie at 2,200, $200 above the min. I like that as a leadoff spot. And if he gets on in front of Jazz, potential run spot. Soler's got a lot of power. Jesus Aguilar, just big power bat. Historically, I do like him against lefties. Lately, that ISO's kind of dipping the last 2 years, but these are guys that, I'm just looking for that one sweet crack of the bat. And I think their price is also what I really like to value stack with the trendier Coors bats, because I think we are going to have to wrestle with the, oh my God, Coors is the highest owned. What do we do? And I think this is the perfect kind of solution here, is we can shuffle the deck of cards to offset some of that high ownership with a lot of 2K specials here, other than Jazz and Soler. This is a sub $2,700 stack all the way through and through on FanDuel.
Yeah, and I'm happy to get to shares of Avi Garcia if nobody else is, against a lefty. 2,600 last year, 29 home runs at 228 ISO, 15% better than average creating runs. Like, he's been down a little bit this year, but that's a hitter I've grown to trust over time. He's proven it to me. Even like a Miguel Rojas, I wouldn't really mind shares of at 2,300 if I'm making that specific play. We're like, all right, I need to get dirt cheap to get to some of those Braves bats and still get a pitcher that I like. So I'm with you. I think they're an interesting pivot option here against Wood, despite some of the numbers against left-handed pitching so far this year. Let's move on. Let's take a look at the other game that's on the 6 o'clock hour on the FanDuel slate only. Nice game total in this one. It was 10 for most of the day. Going back to the Reds park here. Nationals with Jonah Dunn on the hill. Reds answering back with Graham Ashcraft. Is there any reason in the world to roster either one of these pitchers on the FanDuel slate?
No. Did your thing, dog. That's gonna be a no for me.
Yeah, not in this park, not with that game total, not with these pitchers. So let's talk bats. What are we doing with the visiting Nationals first off?
Yeah, so Juan Soto and Great American Ballpark, these are what dreams are made of. So yes. I'm in on that. I'm in on him against this Reds pitching staff. I think that makes a ton of sense. He has one of the highest probably ceilings on this slate. And it's just, a spot that I will not be without Juan Soto in my lineups. And really just this whole Nats team makes a lot of sense. But that Soto, Cruz, Josh Bell continues to be my favorite lane on the year. But Yadiel Hernandez has been tugging at my heartstrings a little bit more. Kyber Ruiz, guys like that. It's just a really, really positive spot for them. And they don't strike out much. So they're going to put the ball in play a lot. And this is a, kind of a discombobulated Reds team. Although I will say, they handled their business against Red Sox for a couple of games that I quite enjoyed.
Yeah, those were definitely fun. I think I'm with you on, I like the look of the National side of this one, going up against Graham Ashcraft, no strikeouts to speak of, 4.8% swinging strike rate over 10 and 2/3 this year. So it seems like he's going to be just throwing beach balls up there for these guys to hit. If I can get Juan Soto at, a $3,800 price, that's cheap for him. And then if I can combine him with like a 15% owned Nelson Cruz, a 7% owned Josh Bell, Keegan Ruiz not drawing any ownership, maybe Yadiel from later in the lineup, I don't mind that as a full stack a few times over, because they're also relatively cheap and they're hitting in great conditions against a nothing pitcher. So I think I'll be getting to some Nats pretty aggressively. The reason I'm not as excited about the Reds on the other side, you mentioned started out the year pretty bad, shown some life recently. There's some hitters like Nick Senzel, Brandon Drury, Tommy Pham that I can, get to on a normal day. But today, these Reds are drawing like 25% ownership up and down. Joey Votto's pulling almost 40%. Are you going to these Reds bats?
Yeah, it's always it's always weird when one of the worst teams in baseball has, the highest ownership. So like, I don't disagree with the opportunity here. Like, I don't have a ton of respect for Dome. At the same time, it's still the Reds. It's still a pretty low ISO team. I do have a historical tendency to just stack the ballpark. But on these more condensed slates, I do look for opportunities to find ways to be different and not hate myself. Like, it's like the Braves, for instance, right? Like, mathematically, maybe I want to stay away from the Braves because how high owned they are, but I don't want to, because I think there's just a smash spot, and those bats are really good. The Reds are kind of the inverse, right? Where the Reds are so bad, as a team, and I'd probably just stay away and hope that they're a pretty average outcome for this ownership. So yeah, I think I will immensely undercut the field on the Reds, at least in the full stack sense. Maybe I'll be a little bit more receptive to a couple, one or two guys being a little bit high owned, but I'll just stay away from the full stacks.
Yeah, I think that's my approach here. You know, if the Reds burn me, and especially if it's like Reds Braves and those stacks burn me, then you know what? It's just that kind of night. I'll let 40% of the public duke it out over, you know, which pitcher happened to strike one more guy out or pitch an extra third of an inning or whatever. But I think that we can get ahead of the field by skipping over some of these Reds. You mentioned, though, maybe some one-offs. Who specifically would you be interested in? Like what one or two hitters from that lineup would you maybe look for in that case?
Well, Odon's biggest leak has been really against lefties so far. 5.5 xFIP, low K rate, 260 plus average, home run per nine over 1, and a 16% walk rate. That's not good. So these lefties sound good, but it's Votto and Moustakas really the only guys that we can take advantage for those splits. So I definitely could see some potential in Votto drawing some walks here, and maybe that can touch into a Moustakas RBI. Votto is throwing the best power mark for me, but I do believe a lot of that's from last year's influence, and we haven't quite seen that come to fruition this year. But hey, maybe there's some life in that bat, and Odone can perform that a tiny CPR on it.
Yeah, if anybody's going to bring it to life, it might be Odone here. So I don't mind that. I do mind though the 40% ownership tag on him. It's just rough to get the Votto when he's, you know, sitting 173, 316, 300, and the power's not there. That's a tough ask. But yeah, I'm with you on the Moose call. That's probably the guy I'd be targeting for that cheapo home run. Let's move on. We'll talk about our Yanks playing the Angels in the nightcap. It is not currently raining in Jersey City. It was drizzling a little bit earlier. It's not quite as nasty out as it was yesterday going into around this time, but there are some weather concerns around the game. Are you concerned at all about this one scratching, or you think they're going to just try and push through and play?
Oh man, you're my boots on the ground, right? What do you think on that? Is that on either slate though?
I don't think it's on the DraftKings slate, is it not?
Oh, is it on DK? We're already at 7:05. I'm tripping. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's on the DK slate.
I have the FanDuel open. It's not on FanDuel.
Yeah, they took it off FanDuel. The FanDuel slate had the afternoon game on it for the afternoon slate.
Yeah, I think obviously we're not going to pitch Detmers, and Tyon is in the context of this slate, he's better than a lot of what we have available. So maybe if the weather gave us some hope, I'd maybe want to get some shares of him, and the Angels had some really rough at bats this morning. So if they're in a little lull here, I can maybe lean on Tyon a little bit more just for some average results here. Maybe looking for 15 to 18 on DK, but he's still expendable if the weather didn't open up for us. And I would definitely want Yankees exposure against Detmers for sure. A lot of us already did this research yesterday, right? This is the game that got postponed. And obviously I was ready to hit the all-in button on this Yankees stack against.
Yeah, I love that spot yesterday.
Yeah. So yeah, Yankees, yes. Tyon maybe if the weather is appropriate, but I don't know. You got to lean on weather.
I just pulled it up on radar and dark sky and everything. It does look like it's a lot cleaner than last night. There's a pocket of rain, like they've got it labeled as light rain from game time ish till like 10:30. But knowing they probably want to get this game in schedule wise and everything, I feel like it's one where we'll play through. Maybe it delays. That would be the risk, I think, rather than a postponement. Maybe you get that in-game delay. Pitcher like Tyon, multiple surgeries in his career, his arm's bionically rebuilt. Maybe they sit him after a delay. You're playing with a little bit of fire there, but I'm not that concerned about it. I think they play through, and I think you can roster him. I don't love the price at 9,300 on the DK slate with 32% of the slate going to it, but I think he's fine. I do think he can pitch through this lineup effectively, find his strikeouts against it. So maybe that ownership comes down just on, some speculation of rain, people not thinking as much about this game, and maybe we sneak them through. I don't mind that, but let's talk bats here because I think that's what everybody's focus is on. Who are we looking for from the Angels side of things going against Tyon?
So I was actually, I don't see a confirmed lineup yet. One of the things I'm wondering is, would you expect them to give
no confirmed either way?
Would you expect Ohtani to sit this game since he pitched first game, also hit? And if that were the case, it definitely dampens that lineup quite a bit. So, and that's just speculating. But if he was in, obviously Ohtani, Ward, Trout, Walsh would be the usual suspects for me. But I do think there's a strong chance that maybe Ohtani sits this one out.
Yeah, I mentioned that this morning, and just the chaotic nature of the second game of a doubleheader with what it does for getting lineups in. It's the DK slate, so we've got until the 7 o'clock hour. So it'll be after the end of this show that slate locks. Hopefully, we'll have lineups. Maybe we can swing back through if we get some confirmed lineups and talk it through. But I agree, it would make some sense to see Ohtani sit there and taking him out of that lineup, even on it, like even when you get the version of the lineup where you can't play him for DFS, but he's still there. He's still a run creation force in that lineup, so he can help with some correlated scoring. Where if you just flat replace him with another bat, it's not quite as good. So that would be a downtick. What about in our Yankees? Again, not a confirmed lineup, but what would you expect to see there? Miguel Andujar is in the projected. IKF is in there. Higgy's in there. What are you thinking in terms of the Yanks?
Yeah, so
suspects, obviously.
Andujar pinch hit for Carpenter in the middle of the game. I wonder if they would reserve that leadoff spot for him here. I don't think they will. I think they go DJ. Probably something like DJ Judge, Rizzo. I think there's a chance you could see Gallo sit against a lefty, but we're just openly speculating at this point. But just generally speaking, I want Glaber, I want Andujar, I want Judgy, I want LeMahieu, Rizzo, I want everyone. They're all doing really, really well against everybody right now.
Even Hicks, all those guys. Yeah,
Hicks had 3 hits this morning.
There we go, coming to life. I love it. We need him. I tell you what, we need him. His on base skills, has been there mostly, but we need that bat, a little bit of power out of him. I love seeing Glaber come back to life too. 10 home runs now, and up over last year's combined total, I think, from the last couple of years. So it's nice to see him come back to life a little bit. So we'll swing back if we get some confirmed lineups and maybe try and talk that one through a little bit more. Let me jump over to the schedule here and take care of some business. You guys are here for Awesemo baseball talk, right? So you guys are familiar with the fact that we provide projections, ownership tools like the top stacks, the top pitchers tool. You can get access to MLB for $18.95 a week, as low as $18.95 a week. We also offer a monthly plan on that, a little bit more expensive. Fantasy Cruncher not included. Fantasy Cruncher is always an add-on. But if you play anything other than MLB, you should probably check out the Platinum plan. The Platinum covers everything that we do at the site, and we cover every DFS sport that's out there. So if you're still playing a little bit of NBA, you're playing the NHL conference finals, let's go Rangers. If you're dabbling in golf, if you're looking at MMA, if you're looking at NASCAR, any of these different sports that we've got going on, look at the Platinum plan. It includes everything, all the tools, the projections, the lineup builder, our premium Discord, tons and tons of stuff up on the site, the best tools in the industry, and we're offering a hell of a deal on it. 50% off your first month of Awesemo Plus Platinum with the promo code MLB Live. That's MLB Live, all in caps, gets you 50% off the first month of Platinum, guys. It's a pretty killer deal for the best subscription we've got at the site. I really encourage everybody to check it out. Gun, let's start talking about games that are on both sites. We have the Seattle Mariners going up against the Orioles. I kind of think this one's going to be an inflection point for the slate, however this one swings, which is weird to say about a game with kind of 2 flat pitchers that aren't getting any ownership. But I just feel like for some reason, the way that the offenses have been going with these teams, this seems like another critical spot to me. I don't know why, but how do you feel about this one? Would you roster any Chris Flexen who's going for the Mariners? Would you look at any Jordan Lyles who's going for the Orioles here?
I'd rather not.
Yeah, same. Yeah. I'm thinking bats, by the way. I'm not thinking arms. I'm thinking bats are going to be critical, not arms.
No, when I opened up FanDuel and I saw Jordan Lyles at 9K, I had to do a double take. I was like, whoa.
I did that live on the show this morning. Almost did a spit take.
Yeah, no, I'd rather not. And this game also had a little bit of weather concerns, but I think we're closer to being okay with this game. But at the same time, maybe that's still a knack for or a ding for pitching, but I don't need much to get me away from Lyles and Flexen. So, but I agree with you. I think this is one of those games that has one of the widest range of outcomes with these offenses being, with likely to sputter, but also have some upside because of the matchups. I like the thought of the Mariners, especially more so a couple of these lefties here, Winker in that leadoff spot. I like JP Crawford still, and I've been just fine gravitating towards Julio Rodriguez game after game. And Eugenio Suarez, right? Not a great average guy against righties last 2 years, but big power guy. So I'm in on the Mariner stack, and the Orioles is pesky. They're the best worst team in baseball, man. They are just pesky. And I think they have a lot more of the fun names in this version of the lineup that involve, Mountcastle that was out for a couple weeks. Now you got Rushman in the lineup. You're waiting for him to wake up, but that bat is a proven talent and it'll show up eventually. Santander in the 3-hole, like that 1 through 6 looks like a fun stack. And Rougned Odor, man, I don't know where this was last year, but I swear every time I turn up, he's making a big play for them offensively, even if it's fluky at times. So yeah,
lefty home run off Robbie Ray last night.
It's ridiculous. It really is. But yeah, I like the offenses way more than the pitching, obviously.
Okay. Yeah, definitely for me as well. At 6,700, would you go to any shares of Jordan Lyles? He's pulling like 13%. Flexen also pulling 13% at 6,200, coming off that nice start against the Astros. Would you dabble with these pitchers, maybe sprinkle them in a little bit at or under the field there, or are you just kind of forgoing them completely?
On FanDuel, no. On DK, maybe you're hoping for 10 plus fantasy points, right? Yeah. I do think you could take a 10 and walk away at SP2 tonight on DK just because of how bad pitching is. So maybe right now, no, but I maybe more so the Lyles side because he does have at least a 1 at 5K rate. Flexen really has no redeeming qualities when it comes to strikeouts. Yeah,
as much as I like the Mariners lineup a little bit better, I agree. I think I would look to the Lyles side just for the additional strikeout bonus. And we've seen him put up a couple weird, decent performances on short slates that, sometimes it does work out. But I think, you're more hunting for that mid-range, low-level performance where you're booking that 10 on DK and getting out for your 6,000 salary here. Interesting on the Mariners lineup too. Abraham Toro back in the lineup now. So I was debating between going with Eugenio Suarez or Mike Ford, who I thought might be in the lineup today for my home run call, and he was pulling a nice number, but Toro snuck in there. So I went with Eugenio Suarez was my home run model call. We'll get to yours later on in the show, or do you want to throw it out now? Have we already bypassed it?
I mean, I don't have a specific call already, but I do have Suarez. So Suarez is at the magic number, though.
All right. So we're seeing that one similarly. So
I had him as my call yesterday, and it didn't happen. So he's probably going to day late, and you get the credit.
I'm going to pick it up. I love it. I'll sign for that right now. Anything else to call out from this game before we move on?
No, I'm just, mainly offense for me.
Yeah, I agree there. The pitcher du jour for at least the DK slate, pulling 50-ish% ownership for 9,700, which I think is too low a price. He's very good. Sean Manaea, the lefty going for the Padres, he's pulling around 20% at 10-2 on FanDuel. That's pretty playable in alongside Sandy, pulling similar ownership for a higher price. And then Adrian Hauser going for the Brewers, 8,500, less than 10% popular on DK. 91 on FanDuel, pulling less than 5% ownership. I don't really see a ton of need for Hauser on the FanDuel slate. Maybe a little bit like the mid-level on DK, but not that much interest. But let's start with Manaea. What are you going to do with Sean Manaea, particularly on DK, where he's so popular?
Yeah, I was thinking more so around the 20 myself. But looking at this version of the Brewers lineup, I mean, there's some guys I can get around. I fear McCutchen, Urias, and Tyrone Taylor the most. Past that, from looking at K percentage, matching it with ISO versus lefties. Yelich, Tellez, Keston Hira, Colton Wong, Caratini, Jace Peterson. I mean, we're talking hundreds and below on ISO, and the K percentage is 22 to 40% if you put Hira in the mix. So I do think the matchup is a little bit more positive than what I perceived it would be, I guess, when I saw Manaea on the slate. But looking at the numbers on this Brewers team, there's 3 guys I'm scared of, but past that, I think there's a spot for Manaea to serve a purpose, even more so today, as we talked about. There's only a few pitchers that, we would consider good or, above average, and I think Manaea is one of them. So I think by default, I have to get to him. And at 20%, yeah, like you said, I think that dog will hunt. It might be a negative leverage, but heck, I don't, like I said, if it means less Hauser or no Hauser, sure, I'll take it.
Yeah. This is one of those slates where I'm just kind of thinking I'm going to take a little bit of negative leverage and I'll eat that on pitchers that I think are actually good pitchers rather than hunting for positive leverage on guys that I just think suck or are in bad situations. So I'm with you on that one. I'll let those guys in around the edges like I always do. I do like to get cheap and weird at pitcher when I can. Just not a lot of great options for that today. You talked through some of the Brewers there in terms of going up against Manaea here. Would you be taking out any shares of Brewer stacks if you do get to a fair amount of Sean Manaea shares? Would you be hedging with any of these low-owned Brewers?
Yeah, a little bit. Like I said, Koch, Urias, Taylor, would kind of spearhead the movement there, and then fill in the cracks there with probably a Yelich, maybe hope for a bullpen arm there, or even just get into Manaea. Even though he strikes out lefties and holds them to a low average, so far this season he's got a 1.8 home run per nine. So lefty can sneak one over the fence on him. So maybe Yelich or Rowdy Tellez can surprise us. So definitely some merit in the stack. It's a lot of hedge intention for me when I get there. But yeah, I think you can justify it pretty easily.
Yeah, I think that one makes a ton of sense. And I'm with you. Those are kind of the bats that I'm looking at. It'll be minor shares, but it's easy enough. Everybody's single digits ownership. It's easy enough to get over the field. And they're at least somewhat affordable on both sites. Nobody over 5K on DK. In fact, they're downright cheap on DK. Yelich 46, Urias 43, and everybody else under 4. So that's a decent little value stack. Maybe a little bit sneaky against the pitcher who's going to be in half of all lineups. What about the pods on the other side? We talked a bunch of different times about how we kind of don't really love this lineup when there's no Tatis. Manny, I'll take any day. Maybe a little bit of Eric Hosmer against Adrian Hauser here. Are you getting to any additional Padres bats beyond that? Looks like Nomar Mazara is on this team now at the dead minimum on DK.
Nomar Garcia Power. Yeah, no, I don't really have that, and it's not that I'm fading Hauser for me thinking he's a gas can. It's more so he's just pitching to contact, 60% ground ball rate. 8,500 is probably a little too much for me. So I don't necessarily think he implodes or anything like that. I just don't know that he has a ceiling worth going out there and grabbing. But the talents in Machado, I'll always have that in the player pool. Never take that out. The Hosmers, the Cronenworth guys like that. But I don't have a whole lot of interest in onslaught stacks for the Padres.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that. It would just be kind of little pieces around the edges, some Manny where I get them, some Hosmer where I get them. Let's take a quick look back. The Angels and Yankees lineup both dropped right after we talked about that game. So it looks like, I'm guessing Ohtani's going to be hitting second for the Angels. They've got Reed Detmers listed as their two-hitter now. That just changed. Yeah, it was Ohtani without having eligibility a second ago, and it just updated. Assuming that's Ohtani, Ward, Ohtani, Trout, Walsh, Rengifo, Marsh. Looks like a fairly standard version of the Angels lineup. Yanks answering with DJ, Judgy, Torres, Miguel Andujar cleaning up, IKF hitting fifth. That's a little weird. Aaron Hicks, Joey Gallo. I like those two bats a lot better. And then Higgy and Marwin. Any thoughts?
So I guess Rizzo's the notable absence there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, that 1 through 4.
Sucks because I like Rizzo lefty. Nobody goes to him.
100%. I love that 1 through 4. I love it.
Yeah, I'll take shares of that, and then 6-7 with Hicks and Gallo, and I'll let IKF hit a grand slam or something that I won't have hitting fifth. Seems about right. All right, let's jump out of that one. We've got, let's see, we're coming up 6:18. I should probably take care of some kind of business here. Let me look what's on the schedule here. Odd Shopper, our pals over at Odd Shopper, our sister site, our best friends. Make your best bets in 30 seconds or less, guys, and it's usually less. I'm telling you, unless you don't know where you're clicking, what you're looking for, it's less. If you have a bet in mind, you can find out where the best place to make that bet is across a bunch of different sports books that we cover. Odd Shopper features hundreds of daily bets to give you the edge that you need, betting NBA player props, NHL player props, MLB. With expected win percentages and ROIs included, Odd Shopper uses the same DFS projections we use at Awesemo to filter out the best possible bets available for you guys. It also features a parlay builder, so you can jump in there, you pull up what kind of parlay you bet you want to make. It's typically like a 5-way parlay, but you can go for bets that have thinner odds, bigger payouts. You can go for bets that are a little bit more secure, sacrifice a little bit of upside in the payout. It's a great tool to see what kind of different cards you can put together. We've also got an arbitrage tool up there that identifies risk-free guaranteed profit bets that you can make across sports books. So we've got one line over here, we've got another one over there. There's an inefficiency that you can exploit, and whichever way the outcome goes, you make money. That's a pretty damn powerful tool. I'd say get over there to Odd Shopper and check it out. That's Odd Shopper. You can click the link in the description down there. It's also linked at the top of Awesemo. There's 2 S's in the middle. It's oddshopper.com. Go check it out. Start making smarter bets now. Let's talk about the next game up on deck. We just did the Pods and the Brewers. So we've got the Cards in Chicago. Cards got Matthew Liberatore on the mound. Interesting ownership projection for him on DK. 40% of the field going to that kid at 7,300. To me, hasn't really distinguished himself at the major league level. I'm really curious to see what you think of him because I think I have a different lean on that one than the public. And then the Cubbies answering back with Keegan Thompson, who's not really getting much attention in that value tier 6K pitcher on DK. 7,700 on FanDuel, not drawing any ownership. probably makes a little bit of sense, but I think he's at least frisky on DK at 61. What are you doing with these pitchers?
I'm mostly indifferent. Keegan Thompson, I think I still have concerns with a pitch count to make me feel great. He did get to 77 that last outing. But that, I guess he's slowly stretching out. And if he gets into a stressful inning, and the Cardinals could definitely give you some stressful innings, I probably expect him to not really have a leash long enough that often gives me, win eligibility or even just longevity enough to have a score worth having. But 6,100, like we said, at 10 plus, we'll take it. So I do think it's possible. I think with him, his strikeout rate this year has been more so against lefties, and the Cardinals are usually righty dominant, and today's the same thing. So I probably am not that enamored with Keegan here, but I do think there's a chance he gets in the back end of 150, but probably not anything for me in like 50 or less. And then Liberatore, curious case here. We've only got 9 innings of sample size, and you see this sometimes, guys in the minors that are looking like decent strikeout guys. It takes them some time to realize that in the major league level. But I will say Liberatore, even in the minors, had a 1.2 whip, which is like not horrendous, but it's not elite by any stretch. Mm-hmm. So there is still some concern for me there, but the strikeout stuff should improve. Maybe in the short term, we take advantage of maybe low strikeout props or something like that. 7,300 against this version of the Cubs lineup. There's certainly a couple guys like Wisdom, Ian Happ, Frazier that have shown some strikeout propensity against lefties. I'm mostly indifferent. But you have a hot take on him?
Yeah, I think I would be not necessarily fully leaving him on the table, but I don't want to tangle with 40% ownership, even at that 7,300 price. On FanDuel, 8K, I might have a few, but I don't think I'm going to be even up toward that 10%, that 8.7%. I think I'm going to be grabbing some Cubbies bats here against this kid. 20.5% strikeouts over 9 2/3. It's only 2 starts, 11.4% walks. We can forgive all of that, right? I'm not really concerned about that, but we're talking about a 22-year-old pitcher making his 3rd start, aggressively promoted through the minors, former first-round pick, big-time talent. Apparently, he and Nolan Gorman have been friends since they were like 6 years old, while both drafted in the first round of the same draft, yada, yada, playing on the same team now. I feel like I need to see it at the major league level from Liberatore before I'm willing to go to that ownership level on him. I think it makes sense if you want to grab, even if you cut it in half, go 20% on a $7,300 pitcher. There are other value spots to me that are at least interesting for, similar cheaper prices. I think I can get away from Liberatore. And if I do that, I think I want to load up on some of that Cubbies power. They've been a little frisky against lefties. You mentioned the bats that I like, Patty Wisdom in there, maybe some Frank Schwindel. Ian Happ certainly is in my lineups. And I think Clint Frazier for 2,300, 2,000, under 5% owned. There's some pop in that bat. We've seen it. We know it's there. Chris Morel, Wilson Contreras. Wilson's the only high owned player on the slate, on the team, 13% for 4,800 on DK. You can even use that as your DK catcher still. That's not egregious. So I think I'm more on the Cubbies bat side of that equation than I am the Liberatore side.
Yeah, peeking at his minor league numbers and splitting it against righties, 23.1 innings against righties. We talk about 3 true outcomes with hitters. Sometimes there's pitchers that kind of fit that mold. 23.1 innings. I'm looking at 3 homers, 10 walks, and 31 strikeouts. So, yeah, 3 true outcomes for Liberatore.
That is absolutely 3 true outcomes. That might not play that well at the major league level. I'm kind of interested to get to the bats. If 2 of those outcomes are going to be positive for my bats, I think I'm going to play the bat side of it, right?
I think that's absolutely the right call. I think I also might just leave him on the table. I'm not gonna have any of them. Screw it.
Yeah,
we'll get some of the Cubs.
It's an interesting pivot if you leave them entirely on the table. I mean, you're getting way away from the ownership. Focus on some Cubbies bats. I do think that's there is the realm of possibility where he goes out and delivers a big strikeout game, but we're yet to see it. And we know there's some frisky bats on the Cubbies side. What about the Cards? We love the Cards up and down that lineup when they're against the lefty. They can perform against righties in spots, but they're not getting any ownership. We don't think that much of Keegan Thompson as a righty, 22.7% strikeout rate. He's fine. He is what he is. But you mentioned, potential lack of depth, get into that Cubbies bullpen with some of these bats. Are you going any shares of Cards at pretty low ownership?
Yeah, just because of the ownership, I think this is way too good of a team. Goldie, Arenado, Yepez, even mixing Edman, definitely makes sense. I don't have like high expectations here. Keegan Thompson at one point had like a negative launch angle on the season. He still got a 50% ground ball rate. So kind of like the Hauser take where I don't really want to play him because he only has a 17% K rate to righties and might throw 80 pitches. I just don't know how viable that is to get me to a top 1% in the tournament. So that's why I don't like him. It's not necessarily that I don't like him because I think he gets destroyed, but I will bet on talent. And if he's going to have a short hook, half that game could be against a Cubs bullpen that has certainly allowed some power in a park that is a little bit better than Busch Stadium.
A little bit. So, I'd be looking to, maybe grab like the hitters you mentioned, Edmund, Goldschmidt, Arenado, obviously off the top, and then maybe some Brendan Donovan, the lefty bat there, maybe some Albert. I've been letting Albert into the lineups. He's been cheap. He's been good. Better against lefties, though. So I don't know what's really there against righties, but I'll be getting to some cards. They're very low on most of those hitters in the 1% range. Tommy Edman pulling 10% on DK. Everybody low to mid single digits, under 5% on FanDuel. So that's an interesting spot. This is kind of a both sides are for me on the offenses. Don't think I'm really getting to the pitchers here. So interesting situation for us. Let's talk about another interesting pitching situation. Ian Anderson, 1.8% ownership, 7,100 on the DK slate, pitching in Coors Field. On the other side, Austin Gomber, 5,900 on the DK slate, 2.9% ownership. Nobody wants to roster either one of these pitchers. Is there a good reason to put either one of them in your lineup on the DK slate? We'll leave FanDuel alone. We don't really need to go there, I don't think. Are you guys super low on? Me personally, I have none, but it's one of those spots where if you had a, bigger set of Cajones and walked in and say, yeah, I got this much Anderson, whatever, I wouldn't think that you're out of your mind. I don't at the moment though. I am certainly not walking in and slapping anything on the table and saying Ian Anderson's going to win or you can chop this off. But look, 17.6% strikeout rate this year is not impressive, but 23.2% last year, basically as a rookie, that was pretty good. If we can get that version of Anderson against this Rockies lineup, I see a path to success. I think it's a really thin needle to thread, but for that discount price, 7,100 for his talent at just 2% ownership on DK, it might be worth a few shots. It is a oddball dice roll, but I think especially if you're drawing all those Libertor shares away from the value tier, you got to plunk them somewhere. So I do think on talent, he's one of the better value options. It's just an atrociously bad ballpark to pitch in. Gomber, I'm a lot less confident in, but you got to love that $5,900 price. It buys you a few bats on a day where we're saying Jordan Lyles, maybe we're rostering him for 6,700, only has to give us 10-ish points. Is it wildly crazy to think that Austin Gomber can get me 8 or 9 for 5,900 and I can buy even more bats than I can with Lyles?
Yeah, I think he'll get you some salary to get some Braves bats, right? I'm just kidding. Yeah, no, I'm with the thought of it. Like I said, I'm willing to take 10 out of SB2 tonight. But a lot of that's because I like the Braves quite a bit. But yeah. One of the things I'll say that you just mentioned is they're both so low owned that you could be there and really not realize, 2, 3, 4%, and you're there and you don't have to worry about it. So you can get there, just say you're there, and if it works, you'll be way ahead of the field, and you're double hedging versus the the ownerships of the bats. Yeah.
And again, super, super thin needle. Nobody is saying that this is at all likely to work out, but on a day where we're looking for those weird plays on the mound, especially, I think it's at least on the board. So I wouldn't completely rule it out, but it's certainly not a target for me. Let's talk about the bats. 40-ish% ownership on most of the appealing Braves, at least into the 30s for everybody else in the lineup on DK, mid 30s to, high teens on FanDuel. If you want to go to Guillermo Heredia at the back end of the lineup, maybe some Travis d'Arnaud. Those are your low owned guys on either slate. Everybody's super popular here. What are you doing with the Braves?
So I think I'm going to take the plunge here, but as we've talked through this slate, we can, and if, just speaking for myself, I can take the ownership on the Braves, but give back the ownership on the Reds and on Libertor and feel like that's enough to differentiate, or at least a start of differentiation from me versus the field. And I think that's at least a good process when the process says fade chalk like this on a small slate, but I just think they're in such a massive spot. We saw 2 games yesterday and 870 runs between the Marlins and the Rockies. So Coors has been in full effect here. So I definitely want to be in on the Braves here. 25% chance of being a top stack, match mirroring the ownership. I might even come in a little bit above that, but I'm fine with I'm fine with both of those numbers. And like I said, I have a plan to at least push back some of the ownership to create some leverage where I need to.
And I agree. I agree with that plan, right? That idea of, all right, as long as I'm not taking these Rockies and putting them together directly with the cheap Reds like everybody else seems to be doing, I'm getting different. And then if I'm not using Liberatore in that spot, I'm getting even more different. So I do agree they are playable despite that ridiculous ownership. And they're just at such a high run total. They're just such a good power team that, it does make some sense. They do strike out a lot, so maybe they just leave some zeros in your lineup and just don't have their night. But I do think you definitely need to include them. I would not take them out of a player pool by any means. I'll probably be under, but that's typically how I approach the visitors. What about the home team here? Because they're, as usual, drawing all universally under 10% ownership on both sites. In, Coors Field, they're going up against the better of the two pitchers, but Anderson has only struck out 17% this year. So for every flaw that we talked about with Anderson before, are there good reasons to go to Rockies bats at fairly low ownership, a third of the ownership?
Yeah, they got to sleep in their own beds the last couple of days. So the altitude effect, they beat them. Yeah, man. One of the things that Ian Anderson leans on behind that fastball is 22% usage on the curveball. We know that plays a little bit different in the elevated altitude, and that's been his best pitch. So if his best pitch might have a slight pushback here, that usually trends well for the Rockies. So I do like the Rockies bats quite a bit as well. Still no Chris Bryant, but CJ Cron, Blackman, Brendan Rodgers, I can get to those guys and feel okay about. It's not a bunch of household comfort clicks, but we're stacking more so the ballpark here than anything. Like we said, if Marlins and Rockies are, putting up football numbers and back-to-back games, it just kind of shows you how the park can play out. So I'm definitely in on the Rocky stacks here. And let's see, versus the field is at only 8%. Yeah, I'll be above that.
Yeah, it just seems low. Just in, like I said, it's they're playing in the ballpark too. It's not like we're going away from that, and they're up against a pitcher who has not been great either. So I'm with you on that. I think I'll be getting there. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. I need to change Michael Harris's name. That's what's going on here for me. Bear with me just 1/2 sec there, guys. You appreciate it while I'm just trying to get some of these lineups in. Let's jump over. We'll talk about the last game up on deck. We've got the Mets in Los Angeles to play the Dodgers. I think Tony Gonsolin is kind of interesting on the FanDuel slate where you're paying $9,800 for him. He's only 2.5% owned. Problem is the Mets have been really good against right-handed pitching this year. Taijuan Walker, I don't want any part of. If you have any interest in him, go ahead, feel free. But what do you think of Tony Gonsolin on this one?
Yeah, he's been able to get 6 innings out of 90 pitches in 3 games straight. Dodgers getting swept by the Pirates, certainly something they want to move on from. And Gonsolin, he's been keeping the ball on the ground, getting you a little over a strikeout per inning last couple of games. And on the season, a 1-4 K rate, 25%, and the expected ERA is pristine at 2.5. So we're just banking and betting on talent here. I do like him quite a bit. I will say, kind of like Alcantara, the pushback is his better split is against righties, and the Mets usually project more lefty than righty. But it's not like he's getting destroyed by lefties. Still has a 24% K rate to lefties, keeping the ball on the ground at almost 50% and keeping the ball in the park. So he's very, very viable on a day where we're conceding that we'll take more modest results out of pitcher. Like, this is probably not a day where we expect a lot of 30s out of our pitcher spot, and we'll take the 20s. I think Gonsolin gives you that chip and chair potential to get you 20, but it's likely not going to be a easy path to success. So I'm there on Gonsolin just because of the shallow player pool at pitcher. And I'm hoping he continues to do the most with 90 pitches.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Are you going to hedge that back the other way with some Met stacks here?
Yeah, I have to.
Yeah, I have to. Any love for before we go to the bats, any love for their pitcher at all? Any reason to roster Taijuan Walker on either side against the Dodgers?
No, he's been actually kind of lucky results wise, and it makes my blood boil. 2.83 ERA versus a 4.1 expected ERA, a 13% K rate, a 1.26 WHIP, walking lefties at over 11%. This guy, he got another thing coming, and I'm hoping it's today with the Dodgers.
Yeah, that shoe is going to drop and drop fast, and it's probably going to be tonight. So I'm with you on that. No reason to go to him. Let's talk on the bat side of things then. I think we probably both want to take advantage of that spot then and go to the Dodgers, who I think are pretty low owned across the industry tonight. So I'm definitely targeting some Dodgers bats. I'm about to give them a little nudge in my sort in the last 5 minutes. Jeez, running out of time. 6:40 lock on FanDuel, by the way, guys, 5 minutes ago. So let's talk about Dodgers, and then what about the Mets on the other side, and which bats specifically do you like?
Yeah, so Dodgers, all of them.
Yeah, top to bottom, right?
Yeah, one through four, obviously the focal points here, but man, yeah, that's a dangerous lineup through and through. On the Mets side, we're still speculating on what it might be, but I assume it'll be Nimmo, Marte, Lindor, the polar bear, and then after that, we'll see what they do. Nick Plummer has never not hit a homer, so look for him at 2K to be a problem.
Superstar. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's crazy. He's really, really cheap. So if you believe in a hot bat, maybe he keeps it going. But yeah, Dodgers are pretty easy to dissect here. We're just spraying and praying him. And then as far as the Mets go, like I said, Gosling keeps the ball on the ground at a decent enough clip that I can't really project a ton of power. So I'm betting on talent. And then maybe a guy like Marte, who since the beginning of last year has batted 320 plus against righties, and we know he has some stolen base potential. And this is a Mets. This is I want to say important series, but it is a statement making series for the Mets. Sure. If they can still win against the Dodgers, and they're also probably going to have to play a little bit more aggressive, likely playing from behind. So a guy like Marte, if he does get on, we know he can steal some bases.
Yeah, absolutely. I love Marte. Got to get to, some Pete Alonso in there. If Nimmo's in the lineup, we can go to him up at the top of the lineup. Love him as a leadoff bat. So lots to like there. Did you call out any specific Dodgers in that? I'm just trying to get these lineups taken care of. So sorry. If you can talk,
you're
Dodgers
good.
For a moment.
All of them. As far as power ratings, I'm getting the righties a little bit more. Mookie Betts and Will Smith. One of the things that has been on Walker's side so far this season is that his home run per nine to righties is at 0.45, whereas last year was at 1.61. And the batted ball data is really not different this year to last year. And his line drive rate to right has actually gone up a little bit. So the 0.45 should regress to what we saw and know last year. And so I expect that number to come up for these righties. And that's going to be Mookie, who's on fire. Trey Turner, Will Smith, all those guys look pretty doggone good to me. And then, like you said, that walk rate to lefties could create some ducks on the pond, some more RBI potential for Dodgers, especially pushing Walker out of the stretch.
Makes some sense to me. Favorite stack on the slate to sum up on each site?
Yankees on DK, because this is the I'll say the sneaky spot, right? But with a lot of tension on Coors and Great American Ballpark, man, Yankees just might slide through there and put Detmers down. So I like them at 11%, even though we only have them at 6%. I'm there on that. And then on FanDuel, I think the Marlins are a fun stack at those prices, just because you could shuffle the deck of cards with Coors and still get quality pitching. The very few options that we have at pitching.
Right on. All right, I like that call. Talk to me about the home run model. What are we seeing for power on this slate? Any specific call outs you want to make from the home runs?
Looking at the top of the bomb detector with some pitcher sample size. Ronald Acuna is at the tippy top.
That would make some sense.
Yeah. Judge is up there. She's give me a different name, bomb detector, something that's a little surprising. It's all the usuals.
Like such a homer, such a jock donkey. I hate those days.
Right, McCutcheon's up there. Maybe people would expect him. I'll take that.
I don't mind that one. Like I said, I had Eugenio Suarez as the call in the article, so I like that spot. I definitely like some of the looks of some of the power from the Cubbies as well. Patty Wisdom was my call yesterday. I don't think he came through, but I wouldn't be totally shocked to see one from Patty Wisdom today here. So let me click this, that edit entries. I think they're all going to go in. Woo! God knows what's in there, but they're in, so that's a plus. All right, we've got a couple more minutes to go, so we'll see if there's any questions. I think we're going up to 45. Talk about the DK slate. We can swing back through any since we are talking a little bit about the LA Yankees game that was the one that was only on that slate, and we kind of breezed through the lineups earlier. Did we get any confirmation on that Ohtani spot? Is he hitting second?
Yeah, he's bad second.
All right, and he is available on that slate, so I think we can definitely take a look at that and maybe play some of those Angels stacks going up against Jameson Taillon there. Anybody in particular you want to call out from that game?
So it is still, we can't roster Ohtani, unfortunately, but like you said, he is a run creator. So if he gets on base, it does, create more upside for.
So he is. Behind. So he's not included in the DK pool.
He's listed as a
after
pitcher.
He's still listed as a pitcher. Got it. So they didn't clean that up. Got it. All right. Yeah. So yeah, that does definitely ding that a little bit for me. Taking a look around the board here. As far as DK value pitchers go, we talked about everybody, but do you have a favorite if we're not going to Liberatore with a few minutes to go? Do we have a favorite DK value pitcher that you want to call out?
Man, it is toughie, right? It's absolutely slim pickings. I don't know that you would. Yeah, I'm not diving that far low. Man, I don't have a warm and fuzzy call here.
Yeah, neither do I. I think honestly, it's weird to say, but I think maybe Keegan Thompson might squeeze you out like 5 clean innings against St. Louis there for 6,100. Maybe he gets you a few strikeouts and finds something, but it is thin at that value tier, which kind of to me just supports the argument of, hey, go super contrarian and grab some of that $5,900 Austin Gomber, because there's nobody else that's appealing in that 59 to 65, 67, 68 range. Jordan Lyles would be the other one, like we talked about, a little bit of strikeout rate on him, but I like Seattle's bats and they've been kind of frisky. So I don't love that spot. I think it's at least, equally take the ballpark out of the equation because they've got a big ballpark now and a big pitcher friendly one. But I think it's at least somewhat even with him and those Coors pitchers. So just a weird wrinkle to the slate. That Coors game, obviously a big inflection point. How much did you end up over the field on Braves on the FanDuel slate? I'm curious.
I ended up with 35%. I don't know if that's. I haven't looked at over. Yeah, pretty massive share. Yeah, I've got a pretty big share. It looks like probably about 25% on the team stacks went in. Then I got to a decent amount of the Cubbies, actually probably a little bit too much. We might have to thin that out as I'm looking at what actually went in here. Definitely some Braves, got to a little bit of the Orioles, got to some Rockies like I wanted to. As far as the pitching goes, let's see what my highest owned pitcher ended up being here on the on this slate for the FanDuel board, which maybe will help out inform some of the DK folks still. Looks like my highest owned guy was Sandy, but I do have a big share of Sean Manaea and then Tony Gonsolin, like we talked about, and kind of thin sliced Wood, and then just minor shares of any of the value guys. What'd you end up on doing on pitcher on the FanDuel slate? So I only ran 4 pitchers, 50% Alcantara. So Lord Jesus, please. And then Gonsolin, Manaea, and a little bit of Wood as well. Okay, excellent. So I don't like to get cute at pitcher. I know that's probably like the biggest hole in my game is I hate playing these bums that have these fluke games. I like to go with the actual numbers, but it obviously makes sense for the outlier production that we see every day in baseball. Yeah, and especially this year, I just feel like we've been getting so many of those starts where every single day one of these oddball $7,000 guys is coming in, and I think in terms of FanDuel scoring, so putting up that weird 45-point score, matching all the aces, and just like, all right, anybody who had him as buying better bats than me. So it's definitely interesting on that side today. I did leave the Awesemo MVP on the table to talk about real quick, guys. Get exclusive Awesemo discounts and the first crack at beta testing any of our new tools and features, and we've got a lot of stuff coming at the site. It's going to be pretty exciting watching all these new tools and all the stuff the guys have been working hard on behind the scenes start to roll out and hit the public this year. So if you want to sign up for the early beta program, if you want to get those exclusive discounts, text MVP22 MVP22 to 1-660-656-4417. And you'll automatically be entered to win a year of Awesemo Plus Platinum alongside all those little fringe benefits. Not bad. For information, click the link in the video description below. With that, we're coming up on the end. Gun, tell these guys where they can find you. Twitter.com/Gundacker, YouTube.com/Gundacker. That's the place. He's got killer content. Guys, we really appreciate it. Make sure you hang out. Make sure you hit the like, hit the subscribe. Helps us out. We've got shows coming up later on. We've got the NBA Deeper Dive coming up at 7 to 8 with Laffy, and I believe Alex is going to be on that show. Then we've got Greg and Eric handling the NBA Live Before Lock 8 to 9, and then they're jumping on that live stream. So make sure you're clicking the link. Check out the live watch party tonight. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm probably going to take a walk down to the liquor store, grab some beers, and load up for that party. What do you think? Hey, man, sounds like a plan. Walking, get a little workout in, and then, hey, you earn those carbs back. There you go. Well, it's only about 2 blocks away, so I don't know. Maybe a sip of beer will be burnt off, but we'll take care of business that way. Guys, we really appreciate you hanging out with us tonight. Good luck out there. We'll see you later on.